Hello everyone and welcome to a lovely little surprise unboxing. Here I have in front of me a Creative Xmod external USB sound card. This is a very cool little device, and I've actually got an interesting past with this device. I've never owned one, but in my mind it's always been in the background because this thing was released in sort of 2006, 2007, and I remember when it gained popularity around 2008, there were a load of the original YouTube geeks that owned one. They had one of these sound cards on their setup, and I always wanted one. Back then, I always loved the little gimmicks on the setup, you know. It was around the same time where I bought my Apple Universal Dock for iPods and stuff like that. I just loved the idea of the white, awesome looking, nice accessories for your desk. And you know, that time has kind of gone now. It's all sort of in the past, and this white is pretty much gone these days. But it's really cool because even though I've never owned one, I do feel nostalgic about this product because I was always going to get one. I always had a list of stuff I wanted for my desk and I was going to get one of these, but I never had the need or the chance, you know, because it's a luxury. But I saw this on eBay for £10 with I think £4 or £5 postage, and do you know what, I really could not pass up that deal. I thought, just for old time's sake, I'm going to come in, you know, sort of 7 years later or whatever it is, and pick one of these up and see what it's like. This was from a time where I first discovered the YouTube geek world. I first discovered Tour of a Geek's Desk videos, and I know a few people had these. Danny is Ace had one of these, and it was in every desk tour that he did, and that which is cool. So along with a few other people. But anyway, this is a very long intro. It's time to roll the intro and get straight to the unboxing. So before I unbox it, I'd quickly like to mention that I actually started searching for one of these just out of curiosity, because when I was installing the operating system on my Hackintosh and fiddling around with MultiBeast and whatnot, I thought, you know what, it's no big deal if I can't get the internal audio working, I'll just use an external sound card, it'll be fine. And then I actually looked back at myself and realised that the only external sound cards I have are the Macionics Blackbird, which is a massive rack mount Firewire external sound card, which is in the studio, and of course not, you know, ideal for desktop use. And the only other thing that I've got that acts as an external sound card these days is my 16-channel phonic digital mixer. And of course that is way too massive to even consider using as an external sound card. So I don't have anything. I don't have any little USB devices anymore. I used to have a little Behringer thing. I don't have it anymore. So I thought, as a handy backup, it would be really good to have one of these hanging around, just in case anything ever goes wrong with the audio drivers, with an update on the Hackintosh or whatever. But I am going to use it as well because I've always been intrigued. Now let's crack into the box. As you guys can see, it's come in the original box, which is really cool. And like I said, I got this for a smashing deal. As well, guys, this is a USB sound card, so the volume knob on here controls the system audio. It's not a physical volume control on the unit itself, which is, you know, it's cool. It controls software, and also there's buttons to turn off the Creative X-Fi and sound enhancements and all that jazz. It's a pretty cool unit. And of course, you can tell it's a little bit dated because it advertises as compatible with Windows Vista, which is just great because obviously when these came out it was before Windows 7. So nice original packaging. Outer box is a bit battered, but if anything it just adds to the awesomeness. Here we have it, Creative, and I'm feeling awesome unboxing this, guys. I always wanted one. Let's open it up and see what we've got. So first off, I would like to announce that this is a lot smaller than I thought it would be. You know how when you look at things in videos you can't get a full idea for what it's going to be like, but this is about 2/3 of the size that I thought it was going to be, which is definitely interesting. It's a plastic unit, it's got a nice feeling sort of chrome volume knob on it, it's got a bit of a spin to it, which is really nice. But let's put the sound card itself off to the side for now. Here we have a nice, pretty long white USB cable, so that's cool. That looks to be the original USB cable that came with it. That's obviously to connect it to your computer. And then we have a fairly short auxiliary patch cable, which is all good. So that would be used to connect your computers. No, sorry, that would be used to connect maybe your speakers to the Xmod, or the auxiliary input to your iPod or whatever, because I'll talk about that in a minute. Here we have a little case for it, which has never been opened. That is awesome, because it is, even though it requires USB power, it is advertised as being sort of a portable device. And then in here we have all of the documentation, which I'm not going to actually take out. So that is really cool. That appears to be sealed, never opened. I thought there was a CD in there, but considering it's bending, there doesn't appear to be one. So I'm going to put that in there, and I'm also going to put the carry case and the little auxiliary lead in there, because we do not need this. I'm going to close that up, and I'm going to keep this box because the previous person kept it. I'm going to keep it. If they can do it, I can do it. And hopefully I'll get a place soon to store all of my boxes safely, because I would like to keep the boxes for pretty much everything, because, you know, resale value and all of that, and it's just cool. So here we have the Creative Xmod itself. It's a nice little unit. You can see on the front here, it's got the big volume knob. I actually had it the wrong way up. Now, what's really cool when you're using this in your desk setup is it does have the USB and the auxiliary jack on the back. So this is where your speakers connect to, and this is where the computer connects to. There are two connections on the front, but of course, if it's sitting on your desk, both of the leads are in the back, which is really nice. On the front, you have a headphone output and an auxiliary input. Now, this has got to be powered by USB, but if you want to plug your iPod or whatever into the auxiliary input to listen to music, you can. So that is really cool. We have two switches on the side, and I believe, let's take a quick look actually. So one is for Xfi Crystallizer, and one is for Xfi, what is it? Let's have another look. CMSS 3D. So this isn't just a sound card, it sort of claims to be, you know, one of these 3D virtualizing, crystallizing sound cards. It's meant to sound a lot better. Now, I probably won't use either of them. Maybe have a quick go with the Xfi on the side, but basically what I can gather is it's like any kind of advertising blurb, you know. The crystallizer will probably just be an increase in the highs in the EQ and a dip in the mids, and obviously an increase in the low end, so you'll get more of a defined sound. But our ears are sort of trained by the industry in the methods of hi-fis and stuff that are available now to be able to listen to a curved, you know, a scooped mix. We can listen to that easier, and we understand that as better sound. But of course, disciplined listeners will know that an even balance between low, mids and high and everything in between is obviously your best bet, but whatever sounds better. And then this 3D modeling thing would probably just put like a stereo space, a stereo spread onto it, so it gives it that sort of surrounding feel, which may be quite nice. But, you know, I have read reviews about this from back in the day, and it's meant to be okay. It's meant to actually make things sound really nice, and of course it's meant to make MP3s sound better. That's one big selling point, so that would be cool. I'm not sure if it does that automatically, or whether you have to enable these two switches on the side for it to do that. But this is the Creative Xmod, so what I'm going to do now is wire it into my setup. Now, I can't wire it in exactly how I want to at the moment, because I will need an extension coming off of my 3.5mm jack. As you guys know, I use a KVM switch, so I'm just going to keep this unique to one side of the KVM switch. So I'll need an extension to extend that stem up to the auxiliary, but that's all okay. Hopefully it may reach, or I may have an extension. I may have given it to someone, I think. Just trying to think now. I'll have a quick look in the drawer. But what's really cool is this doesn't take up a socket, but bear in mind it does take up a USB socket. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention is the knob can actually be pushed down, so I believe this is for mute. So it's really cool. It makes adjusting the volume much nicer, and of course very handy if you're using a non-Apple keyboard with your Mac that doesn't have volume keys, so you can just use this. Really cool. I'm looking forward to plugging this in and seeing what it can do. So everyone, I've plugged it in. As you can see, it's sitting on my desk here. It's nice and grippy because it's got this rubber on the bottom so it doesn't move about, and it's nice to cover those two screw holes on my desk. It hasn't added any extra clutter, and it's great. It's right next to my mouse hand, so I've got control of the volume. And as you can hear, just like I was saying, it actually controls a system volume rather than it being a physical volume control, which is really cool. So I plugged it in. It showed up under outputs in system preferences straight away. It's called Creative Xmod USB, and it's sitting here, and it's got the two switches on the side. They've got little LED illuminators to show you when each of them is switched. Now, I am actually very surprised and if I called it a gimmick in the first little half, you know, it still is kind of a bit of a gimmick, and all fancy advertising and whatnot, you know, crystallizing sound and all that stuff. But it sounds great. The sound crystallizer is not overdone. From what I can hear, it does just scoop a bit of the mids out, which makes it sound more defined and sort of more punchy in terms of the low end, but you do miss that sort of mid-range warmth by doing that. So it obviously depends on what genre of music you're listening to. If you're listening to classic rock or whatever, then you would never ever want this pressed, because that warmth is what really gives it that really nice sound, and that all comes from the mids, which are scooped out. But of course, when you're listening to any kind of modern music, so pop or anything electronic really, switching that is actually makes it sound really nice. As for the 3D thing, whatever it's called, it basically, from what I can gather, puts a stereo spread on the output, and I don't even really know what that does. It's all to do with phase and stuff. You know, I'm not an expert or whatever, but what it does do, from what I can hear, anything sort of 1K and above, it puts a load of reverb on it. So because it's flooded in reverb, it kind of sounds like it's all around you, and it's a very clever effect. So I think for films that would be great. I think switching both of those on for watching films would be fantastic. Now, I haven't tried it with headphones yet, and I've only literally tried it with a few iTunes tracks. Of course, I would give you some samples in the video, and you may be able to hear a difference through the camera audio, but it's really not going to be anything that groundbreaking. And of course, I'd have to find something that I wouldn't get shouted at for copyright and all that, and you know, it would be a really bad idea for me to get another strike on the channel. So yeah, I am pleased with that. It goes red when it's muted, and it's really easy to mute. You just whack it, and like I say, full OS 10 volume control, which is absolutely great. Headphone jack on the front, which I love, and of course if for whatever reason you want to plug your iPod or whatever in, you can, but of course the system has to be powered up for it to do that, because it needs USB power. So I'm very pleased with this, guys. Here it is on my setup. A nice creative Xmod. I've finally got one after all of these years of wondering what it's like, and it does sound really nice. Ooh, and one thing I haven't spoken about, which is probably the most important thing, and that is the unmodified audio when you have neither of the switches pressed. I really cannot tell that much of a difference between that and just plugging my speakers directly in. If anything, it sounds a little clearer through that sound card, which is rightly so, because it's a dedicated sound card of a fairly decent class. Granted, from probably about a decade old design by now, but it's still a nice piece of kit. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed. I'm not going to do a review or anything like that on this because, you know, it's a very old device. They don't sell it anymore. I don't know if they've got a new version or whatever, but I was just so pleased to find this on eBay. I think it's such a cool little thing, and I'm very happy to have it on my setup. Really cool. And of course, like I said, if I ever had problems with built-in audio for whatever reason, it is very handy. Not just on Hackintoshes, but anything really, anything where I can't get onboard audio to work properly. So there it is. The creative Xmod. I'm sort of, on this channel anyway, 5 years too late, maybe 6 years too late, but it's finally here, and so far I'm loving it. So a massive thank you for watching, everyone, and of course, as always, I will see you in tomorrow's video.